So everyone, welcome again to the Career Exploration Who Am I, What's Out There, Where Am I Going workshop. We want to start off with introducing ourselves. I'm Armin Papazian. I'm one of the career counselors at the center. I started working at PCC 2014 as a career advisor. And then I transitioned onto the role of an adjunct counselor. I was working in academic counseling for some time along with career counseling. And about a year ago, I got my full-time position here working as a career counselor at the Freeman Center.
And hello, everyone. Thank you for coming in today. My name is Antonio Del Real. I'm the other career counselor. I've been here for about 8 years, and I've been an advisor, transitioned into an adjunct, now a full-time counselor. This is my 5th year as a full-time counselor. I've also worked in various other community colleges, but my main passion has been working and helping students with their career aspirations. So thank you for coming in today.
A little bit about what we're going to cover today. We're going to look at the intersectionality between identity, personal narrative, and career choice. To look at how who we are connects with how we choose to plant ourselves in the working world. Giving some space to think about that, to explore that, and to also look at how you might tap into services and resources offered at PCC to support you through that process. We're also going to talk about the parts of the career exploration process, partly because making career decisions is kind of complicated. It's existential, it's personal. And everybody comes in with a different story, with a different experience. And understanding the career exploration process helps us kind of break it down into more manageable steps. And we'll talk about how we support students in each of those steps at our center. And then we also want you to learn about us, who we are, what we do, where we're located. Because like Antonio said, we are a fairly new center. Sometimes students pass by us and they don't know it's the Career Center yet. So we really kind of want to get the word out as well, so that you know how to find us and how to connect with us. A little bit about what PCC is doing. So historically, a little bit about community colleges. We used to kind of focus on enrollment and access. Community colleges are interesting in the sense that they're an open access system, which means that we say yes to everyone. So we serve a big, diverse student population. It can be students straight out of high school, and it can be students, adult re-entry students who maybe worked in the world of work for a while and want to transition into a different career path, or maybe they were doing a certain job and they lost their job, and now it gives them an opportunity to shift gears or build additional skills. So we support students. Community colleges traditionally support students from a wide range of backgrounds. But before, we were more focused on enrollment. We wanted to make sure that students were, the system was open and that we were enrolling students into it. And now that sort of paradigm is shifting. Rather than focusing on enrollment and access, we're looking at completion. And even if you look at the title of our center, it's called the Career and Completion Center. So we're asking, how are students reaching their goals? How are they making decisions about what they want to be? And how can the school do a better job at supporting students through that process? So one of the ways we are doing that is by doing some research and looking within. So Natasha Cesar Davis is a researcher at UCLA. She was a grad student working with another researcher in that department, and she did this interesting qualitative study where she called it like a guerrilla method study, where she approached students randomly on the quad and asked them how did they make decisions about the career that they wanted to go into or their major. And she found that students were making these major decisions based off of casual and brief conversations. And she kind of brought up this idea that, yes, they're making a choice, but how informed is that choice? Um, and the reason I think that's an important one is because I kind of experienced it on my own personal level as a first generation student. I remember when I came to college, I started at a community college too. I was so caught up with understanding how the college and the academic system worked that I didn't really think so much about career. I had this idea that once I get a degree, my career, my job is going to be waiting for me. And it didn't. And I often say if I can go back to that time, I would tell myself to integrate career and academics simultaneously, not as separate things. The other thing that she found is that our vocational or career identity is not divorced from our racial identity development or separate from it. She said, moreover, students' negative perception about their race, ethnicity, gender, and other aspects of their identity influence how students view themselves, their capabilities, and their vocational and career journey. So she brought up this interesting point that one, career choices are not separate from who we are, from our own identity. And she also said, stated that it's also not separate from our other identities. And how we kind of feel about ourselves can have both a negative impact in what we choose to do or not do, as well as, in some ways, I think a positive impact too.
That feeling of what we give to ourselves and the message we give to ourselves, it's also conceptualized and also provided what the society does to us, and the information and what it really and how it really affects us, um, especially within how we see within our race, ethnicity, and gender. So this next video that we're going to show you, it was actually developed by Procter and Gamble. One of the things that they want to show you is the racial biases that there are. And I want you to look into the microaggression experience for many of our students. So I know we're talking about career, but our experiences outside of our campus does not simply disappear. And it molds us into the person essentially we will become or we could become. And depending on how, again, we see ourselves and with the experiences that we gain, we tend to either be suppressed or we tend to excel because of that suppression. So I want you to think about this video. We are going to we're going to have some time to kind of go over it a little bit. So if you can think about just the feelings that you might get out of this, and also any personal experience that you might have faced. Okay.
I'm going to start the video.
So on the chat box, I would like you to write some thoughts or feelings that you had about the video, and what did it come up? What brought up for you? Racist towards a lawyer, the stairs. How just by being a person of color will cause people to look at you in a certain way, to start thinking less of that person. People were judging people by the outside. Even though he's very successful, people are weird by him.
Looked at him weird.
People are so quick to categorize others based on their appearance. I thought it was sad how many times a day someone can experience microaggressions, and how too common in today's society. This video showed how people of color and others by society, people are judged by their appearance. Stereotyping, the way he looked. Now, the second question, what are some messages you've received about your future or career path up to this point, positive or negative? Right, so if you saw in the video, this individual, he's a lawyer, he got to be successful. But I'm sure he had to go through a lot of tribulation to be able to end up there. And I know many of you may just be starting your success in regards of your future. So whether it's within your family, whether it's within your community, whether it's society, whether it's our current political climate, what are some challenges and it could be, again, positive or negative messages that you receive about your future? Never give up.
And I would add to that some of these messages also can come from ourselves and the beliefs that we formulate about what we can and what we can not do. Negative, I got jobs will be disappearing because of COVID-19. That's an interesting one because COVID-19 is definitely all of our reality right now, and a time of both survival and uncertainty. And we have yet to kind of find out how it will shape the world of work. Don't make an assumption of people's perception of me. Hardship is everyone will go through, but that doesn't mean to stop what we need to be to accomplish.
You don't look like a UCLA student and high school teacher. You can't be a STEM major.
Mm-hmm. Positive, women are being encouraged to pursue careers in which they have historically been the minority.
So these are our stories. These are our stories for each one of us. It may be different, or we may have some certain similarities, right? Whether we've been judged, whether we're judging ourselves. or whether there's a sense of support system out there. I know the many positives. Um, but we tend to many times create this dialogue in regards of only seeing it in one way and creating that single story.
So, we asked you to kind of come up with one of the messages, positive or negative, um, that has impacted you. And I also recognize kind of the space. Um, but as we dig in, I'm sure there are other things that might be there. And like we said, these things can have both positive and negative experiences. But I want to kind of introduce you to Chimamanda uh, Adichie. She did this wonderful TED Talks presentation where she talks about the danger of a single story. And she says, our lives, our cultures are encompassed of so many overlapping stories that human beings are complex in nature. Oftentimes when you say, what is your identity, it doesn't get limited to one thing. I can't say I'm just a woman. I would say I'm also an Armenian woman. I would say I'm also an American. I would say I'm a career counselor. I'm a daughter. There are various sort of ways that I would kind of describe that. And she said that if we only hear a single story, whether that is constructed by society, um, or about another person or a country, we risk a critical misunderstanding. And she said, she made a point that some of these single stories are the sort of the seeds that plant or give growth to various stereotypes and biases. And we bring up this point partly because figuring out your career identity is a narrative you built. It's a story that you create, and it's an evolving one because we evolve as we grow and move through our career trajectories as well. Um, and she said, if you don't tell your story, somebody is going to tell it for you. So how can we learn to tell our stories? How can we build that courage? How do we formulate it? And I think being able to do that gives space to heal. It gives space to manage our stories and be the authors of it. And it also gives us a chance to do something with it, to be able to make change and think about how our stories might impact another person, a community, or the greater society through the work that we do.
And the best example that I can give you with the video is imagine that black man, all the looks that he received. And if that really ended up affecting him and he didn't have that story that he wanted to create for himself, it might have gone in a different route. He ended up being a judge. And everywhere he would go at that moment, he knew his story. He knew what he stands for, right? But does not mean that we're still not going to receive negative energy from other places. So what can keep us standing in knowing our true self? And it doesn't have to come up right away, especially when individuals within your family, within community, even our campus mention, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? Right? Which may create a sense of fear or uncertainty. So what's our story? So like I mentioned, I'm one of the career counselors. I've been here for 8 years. Now, that's not what I wanted to do I never envisioned that. I think that's one of the things that I wanted to go away from is be a teacher or a counselor, because my self-esteem, the person who I was very low. Um, and I never believed in myself in that capacity that I can stand in front of a class, be able to advise and support others in moving forward. And I think that fear and that challenge that I went through is why I'm here today, because I want to help others. Now, my family migrated here from Mexico. they came for that dream. My dad worked 2 jobs in regards to trying to support the family, all labor jobs, whether it was working outdoors with gardening, um, plumbing. He ended up being a machine shop. Um, he never excluded me from that life because he knew if he would expose me, hopefully, he would create a sense of fear that that's not what I wanted to do. So the message that I always receive from my dad: if you don't end up going to school, this is what you're going to be doing for the rest of your life, whether cutting other people's grass. Um, and I knew what it felt like in 100-degree weather to be able to take out a trunk, a huge tree out of the ground. Um, and that's something that really changed the trajectory of how I wanted to move forward. How when I started my education, one of the things that I realized is knowing that we were low income. I was the oldest child. That I needed to start and move something in regards of changing the life for my family. So I was pursuing careers that made money. No one was ever going to change my decision in regards of what I was going to pursue. If you would have asked, if you would have told me money doesn't make you happy, I would have told you right now, money would make me happy because that's the reality that I live in. I didn't have the privilege to be able to be on the other side and be like, okay, I have money. The job that I do, I don't enjoy. But if I had mentors that kind of guide me through that process, I never got to see a career counselor. I never found support. I had to learn the hard way. I changed my major 7 times. Through that time, I ended up choosing business as a financial analyst, and double majored in real estate as well. Got an internship at Warner Brothers. After that internship, I was offered a position, but I got to realize how much I hated being inside an office for 8 hours a day. I got to realize how I wanted to have my holidays. I wanted to be able to enjoy my family because my dad did not have that luxury. He had to work 12-hour days or even more. So therefore, he wasn't able to pick me up from school. I wasn't able to go to my baseball leagues. A coach had to pick me up. So that reality for me, I knew that I wanted to have a different sense for my family when I start mine. I want to have some sense of freedom. Um, so at that time, I had a part-time job at a community college where I would go out to high schools, and also foster homes and talk to foster students in regards of how community college can change their lives, could change their lives. So that love and that passion, all the energy that I did with that and giving back to my community, that's when I realized that money really doesn't make me happy. But it had to take me that experience and for me to learn it. And I tell you this story is because I hope to help you all not to learn it in that manner, but to be able to guide you in ways that hopefully you choose something that makes you happy.
A little bit about my background. I immigrated to this country at the age of 5 with my family. My family is we're from Armenia. Um, when we left the country because of the political climate. My parents made a decision that uh, they didn't see Armenia as a place at that time where there would be a future for their children. So they, it's an interesting story there because in Armenia we used to live with my uncle's family. My dad and my uncle lived together, and their family ended up moving to France because my aunt's mom was born in France and then came to Armenia. So they were able to get access into the French government, and we wanted to go there too so we can be together. But the French government wouldn't take us in. So we ended up getting sponsored via visa and ended up in America, and we were the first family to move out. So it's like uh, at a very young age, I had a lot of transitions, a new country, a new language, a new group of people. And I remember when I started school, I was really, really lost, and I did not like it at all because I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know what the heck it was. It was my first exposure to school. And I remember I hated my Sundays because every Sunday I would feel this feeling in my chest. And now, as you know, going back and thinking about it, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what to call it, but I felt this feeling because I had to go back to school. And now I know that was like anxiety that I was feeling. Um, so as I started school, I remember my first year, I did not speak a word. And that kind of put me in the role of like an observer. I started looking at the people around me and rather than a participator. And I was trying to learn the language. I was trying to make sense of it. I was trying to survive at that age. But in there, I think my first message to myself and something that it comes with me in every new environment is that I'm different. I'm kind of like an outlier. And I carried that message with me. But the other side of it was I had this sort of like deep sense for belonging. And somehow I remember in elementary school, you know, how they have like the orange and the red and the blue groups. And some of those groups are like the higher, the people that could read better. And then some are the ones that are on the lower. I was on the lower end. And for me, it became this mission that somehow I had to be on the higher end of those groups. And I started, I don't know, like academically, by third grade, I remember I was in like one of the top reading groups. And that kind of became a part of almost my identity. And that's something I heard at home too. I know growing up for me, college was not a choice. It was something that my parents kind of said that it's something, you know, you got to do. If you want to become something in this country, if you want to become a part of the American culture, you got to go to school and get an education. And for my parents, they also, you know, when we came to this country, we were very much in survival mode. My dad had two jobs. My mom was working in various occupations. And interestingly, like I saw in some ways, like the impact education could make too. Because my dad ended up going to a community college. He was an EOPS student. He was a CalWorks student. And he ended up eventually working at a community college, working at Pierce College. And my mom ended up doing hair. And so I saw how like our family evolved from as a result of education. But I had my own issues with it. I think I felt a lot of pressure as the first, also the older sibling to kind of pave the way, and a lot of pressure academically. I remember in high school, I was in honors classes, AP courses. I was supposed to go to UCLA. That was the school that was the school. And my senior year, I ended up getting into UCLA, but I also failed most of my classes. I didn't know I was graduating. I remember I didn't even participate in our sort of like, like the pre-grad walk and everything. And I was just really, really afraid of what I was afraid of what that future was going to look like. I was afraid if I could make it in at UCLA, if I deserved to be there. And another piece of it was I didn't quite know if education was my thing or my parents' thing. Like my entire identity was kind of built on that, and I didn't really get to explore other parts of me. So I ended up at a community college. For me, that was my second chance. And I think the community college for me was like sort of existential in the sense that is education for me, or is it really my thing? I was asking my question as I was kind of like keeping it. And coming to it, I realized that it is my thing. And eventually I ended up transferring to UCLA. I, as a psych major, I didn't know what the heck I was going to do with psychology. I hadn't given much thought to my major other than I really enjoyed people. I loved observing them. I loved helping them. I was just fascinated by people and why they do what they do and how they make these decisions and the many things we can potentially that we feel. Like I was just fascinated by all that. And so I chose psychology, but and when I went into UCLA, as a psych major, it's very research orientated. So it really kind of teach you how to build your research skills. And I realized that I do not want to do research in psychology. And a part of me did not want to be a psychologist. So I felt really stuck. I was like, what the heck am I going to do with as a psych major? And then I stumbled onto this elective course. And the elective course talked about, it was a human development course. And it talked about how culture impacts education. And I absolutely fell in love with it because for the first time, I had words to describe my experience and everything that I was feeling up to that point, and trying to kind of make sense of it. And when I was a part of that, I, I knew I found something. I was like, this is maybe it. I can connect psychology and education together, like helping people and in education, kind of that idea came up. And I didn't know much about the world of work except what I had seen. So I thought maybe I can be an elementary school teacher. I know a little bit about everything, but not too much of it, of one thing. And so I did something smart my senior year. I did an internship and I also started working as a TA at one of the early care education centers. And when I did that, there was never a dull moment working with kids, but I realized I don't want to be an elementary school teacher. Something about it, and it's interesting because Antonio mentioned it too, when he was, working at Warner Brothers, like when something doesn't fit, it impacts our energy. And I remember I would come home and I would have to take an hour power nap just to re-energize for the next day. And I knew something was not quite moving me. So I had to listen to it. And here I am freaking out. Now I have a BA degree and still don't know what the heck I'm doing. And so it kind of prompted me into sort of doing some soul searching and looking within. And I asked myself a question. I said, when was I most present when I was working with the kids? And it was during the one-on-one moments that I would have during outside place time when they were talking about missing mom or dad, or somebody took someone's shovel and we had to kind of resolve some conflicts. When I was reorientating a kid to kind of play when they were kind of wandering and feeling a little bit lost in the playground, like all those things were kind of where I was most present, and I think the best of me came out. And that's when the idea of counseling came up. And I chose college counseling because for me, like education, I know the message was it's kind of a means to an end. I go to school, I get a degree, I get a good job. That was sort of like the message. But over the years, like for me, education was a place that really challenged me as a person. It impacted my values. In some ways it clashed with the values that I had gotten at home. And it put me in this like uncomfortable place that I had to sort of make sense of all that. And that part, I think, really kind of impacted who I became. And my hope, like as a career counselor and going into this profession, is helping people find kind of helping people find their own path, and also recognizing that it's not an easy thing, but it's also a possible thing. And I think that's where sort of my passion in counseling eventually led from, academic to career counseling. And higher ed, I chose community colleges because I really believe in the open access system. I didn't really want to be a part of the 4 years, the UCs and the CSUs, because you got to get admitted into those schools, right? I feel like it kind of takes a segment, but community colleges serves the community. And that was something important for me and my values too. All that didn't make sense. I didn't know that going through it, but I think each of those moments where I had time to sit and reflect, I got another clue. And slowly it started, I was able to kind of build those pieces. I know I talked a lot, but I hope this kind of gets you to kind of meet us too. We both carry the same title, career counselor. I know our professions even gives us some of those labels, but what we bring in is sort of the impact, and each of us brings something different to the table. And I hope through your time at PCC and beyond it, you will find and search for yours. Um,
So now that we've given you a little bit about our story, the hope is that you're going to create your own story, and not feel stressed or anxious about not having it yet. So how do you create your narrative in regards of choosing, not only by your interest, your values, and personality, because that's essentially how it starts in regards of when we ask you, what do you enjoy doing? But tends to evolve with your life outside of campus, right? Whether immigration status, disability, low income, race and ethnicity, whether the economy currently go during the COVID. I'm sure many of us are thinking about, well, what career is going to be the job that's going to be coming up for the next couple of years due to this next essentially year being out of commission, right? Knowing that, for example, we're going to have to be doing online teaching for the next year. The media, the institution, family, peers, faculty, and life roles.
so I think the point that we want to make out of this, and maybe when you look at within yourself, like our career narratives are not just impacted by one thing, right? It's not just like, what are you interested in? What are you passionate about? We hear that often, but it's really kind of impacted by our identity statuses, by economy and media, the messages that we receive. I know earlier we were like, hey, what are some of the shows that you're watching? Some of those shows can be really impactful. Like we get ideas about careers from that. And uh, and and media is it kind of parallels reality, but it's not complete reality. So what are we doing with sort of these ideas? How are we looking more into it to kind of verify it, to see if it's something that we want to do? But I think that gives us clues about ourselves too. And then also family and people. We didn't really mention that. Like I know from my own story, like I didn't know how to ask for help. In fact, if I'm going to be honest, I never went into seeing a career counselor all throughout my undergrad. And it wasn't until graduate school when my program was smaller, there was 12 students, and I was so uncomfortable at the beginning. I'm like, oh my God, everybody can see me. Is when one of my graduate program coordinator really became my mentor. And she was the one that wouldn't let me get away with being invisible. And that made such a big impact in my life. But I didn't find that until I went to grad school. But all those kind of connect. A little bit about sort of having said that, we want to kind of talk about and bring it back home and focus on what can I do with that? How can I start figuring out my story? How can I talk to somebody about it? So PCC is doing something collectively, like even having this conference today is as a result of some of the changes that the campus is doing systematically. So we've been asking ourselves, like, how helpful have we been in helping support students in their career decision making? And historically, students will come in and there was like a laundry list of all the programs that we offered. And when you go to academic counseling, we often say, hey, what's your educational goal? What do you want to do? What's your purpose for being here? What's your major? And so we're realizing that that's not as effective. So rather than kind of looking at a big laundry list, we're transforming this into this concept of career communities. And currently PCC has 6 career communities in STEM: business, health sciences and wellness, liberal arts, social and behavioral sciences, and arts, communication and design. And the hope of that is that we will have events like this so that it gives you an opportunity to have these discussions, to have exposure, to gain experience, so that you're just not just making a choice, but making an informed choice. And that in each of these communities, we're building a success team, which includes career counselors, it includes academic counselors, it also includes faculty, success coaches, tutors, to support you kind of through this process so that you're not doing it all alone. It also gave birth to our center. Like, heck, we're new. we've been around a year and we're in this like hot spot with new furniture and stuff. Like when you see something like that, that means somebody's investing in something. So a lot of kind of money was put into, and there was a generous donation as well to build this center so that students have a place to go to have these conversations, to engage in activities that can prepare them for the world of work, to build skills. Like nobody is born with learning how to, knowing how to write a resume or a cover letter. That's definitely a skill that you built. And this is one of the centers where you can build one of those skills. So having said a little bit about how we support systematically, we want to kind of dig, talk a little bit about the career development process and the steps to the career decision-making process, so that it's a little bit, we take this kind of complex idea of identity, and kind of think about, well, how can I get started with it? How can I turn it into some manageable steps? And fuel the complexity on top of that. So just a little bit about what career development is career development is a continuous lifelong process of developmental experiences that focuses on seeking, obtaining, and processing information about self, occupational and educational alternatives, lifestyles, and role options. Oftentimes we confuse this career and job. We kind of use those changes in those words interchangeably. But career development is something that we do our entire lifespan. Whether it's making the choice about your major, how you're going to be evolving in your work, and then how you're going to retire and exit the world of work. Those are all kind of career decisions that we continuously do. As far as like the steps of the career decision making process, it includes who am I, what's out there, and how do I get there. The who am I piece is more self-reflective, with the end goal of helping you build greater awareness about your interests, your personality, how you've made meaning out of these life experiences that you've had. What's out there is more research oriented. A part of career decision making entails gathering information. That means looking at like different jobs, looking at what you would do as a marketing analyst, for example. How much money would you be making? What's the job outlook? How much education do you need to go into that job? Like, for example, our work, in order to be a counselor, you need to have a master's degree. I knew that I had to get a BA and continue with my education if I wanted to get access into this job. But every job has its different level of educational requirement. And then how do I get there, which is the action piece? What steps would I be taking to get closer to my career path, and more so thinking about how can I start now? And mind you, like even activities like joining this conference, being a part of a student organization, learning how to engage in conversations with your faculty, attending events, doing an internship, those are all things that are building your skill set and experiences. And in the middle, you see it says, where am I going? So that's really kind of the decision-making piece. And we're continuously making decisions as we're learning more about ourselves, as we're learning about what's out there, as we're taking actions. To break down the who am I piece a little bit further,
So under who am I? It's going to be essentially going through your life experience, whether it's positive or negative, whether it's events or messages that you may receive. And compound with that, we're also looking within your interest, what you enjoy, what you like. We have various assessments that you can take, whether they're free. We used to charge for a couple assessments that essentially, if you were to go into industry, they cost around $100 to $200. But if there's an assessment that's required, that you're unsure about what you want to do, but you're also unsure about your interest, feel free to connect with us and we can take an assessment. We also have, then we also want to learn about your values. What's important to you, right? For example, when I told you about me, In my story, in regards to time and holidays, were important. So I want to look at careers that provide that, that gave me that opportunity to take holidays off at any point in time. And I know within the education system, that was an opportunity. Working in the business sector, especially entertainment, holidays were a huge component of my time that I had to be there. Uh, Personality, how do you make decisions? How do you get energy? I know Armin talked a little bit about the energy that she would get every time she would go to be a teacher. I similarly have the same experience. If I work at a high school, middle school, where I had to teach 5 periods, whether they were in a row, I knew that I was going to be drained every single day and I wouldn't be happy. So what's the type of personality that you have? How do you get energy? How do you make decisions? And lastly, skills and strengths. What do you do well in? What are some natural talents that you might have? Or what are some skills that you can gain and obtain that you enjoy?
The what's out there piece, this one kind of, we talked about it earlier and I'm looking at time, so I'm gonna go faster through this one. It's really kind of looking at the information piece and what occupations are out there. I think the piece that I would leave to kind of think about is, I always tell students, like, you can't be what you don't know. Like, how can I aim to be, you know, a college counselor or a student affairs professional or whatnot if I didn't know those jobs existed? And there's many, many different jobs. And I know somebody mentioned earlier, like, what's going to happen with the world of work after COVID-19. And we'll see what the impacts are. But the reality is that the world of work is always changing. So knowing that bit of information, like even our jobs, like within a year, like, you know, between fall, we had to completely recompose how we did things and move virtually online. Like that skill of being adaptable, whether it's in your decision making or your work environment, is a critical skill set to have and to build. And you're all building that right now as students too, because you too had to do an adjustment just like the teachers did, right? Getting like learning, you know, entering school fully virtually. That speaks to your adaptability as well. So learning about what's out there, and then also the nitty gritty of the jobs, like, you know, what are some employers? What industry can I go to? What do I have, you know, what would I do specifically on this job? The educational requirement and so forth. These are some resources that we have. We're not going to go too into it, but these are resources that are available actually on our website as well, where you can gather more information about various occupations out there. And then the last bit, how do I get there? And this one is thinking about what are some action steps you can do to gain exposure and experience in that world of work. It can be through informational interviews, which is talking to somebody in the field. It can be a job shadowing experience where you're literally somebody's job shadow, a shadow at a work environment where you get to immerse in the culture of a particular organization. How to get there can also be through your classes, like taking introductory courses or exploratory classes in a subject that you're interested in. And we can definitely help you find some of those.
I mean, can you, with this last minute that we have, could you show them our website and resources that we have? I know there was a couple of questions of resources and assessments that may be available.
Okay, so I'll let you all, let me move through this. So please visit us. I know we're kind of running out of time, but if you click on our website, the fastest way to find us is if you actually go to the website, go to the search box and you can put in Career Center. And typically the first thing that pops out, you're going to see Robert Tree Freeman. That's us. Click on it and you're going to come to the Career Center website. And then once you're on our website, the front page, you can use this to make an appointment with us depending on what your career need might be. So If you're looking at more career major and career exploration, or you want to talk to a counselor or an advisor about more the decision-making process, what am I, what do I want to major in and what are some career paths I might be interested in, I would recommend that first tab. If you're looking for employment and you need to build your resume, you need a resume, you don't need to have an updated one, or you're starting one from scratch, you need to update those interviewing skills or write that cover letter, you can use this tab here. If you're looking for experience through internships, job shadowing, mentorship, and so forth, you can use that link there to build an appointment. The other thing that I would encourage, exploring other parts of this website. The other tab I want to show is the workshops and events. We do have workshops and events throughout the entire year. You'll see we have a couple, from landing the internship, conducting a job search, preparing for the virtual fair, and many more. We also have diversity events where we have professionals from various industries come out and talk about their experience working at different organizations. This is also something that you can, are events that we have, so stay tuned. I just want to say November 6th, mark that on your calendar. We are going to have an employer fair, a job and internship fair that day. So if you're looking for something, please come visit us. And I will.
Lastly, I provided a survey. If you can please take it, that's how they take in attendance. And at the same time, I know they're doing a lottery for some gift cards. So that would be the only way that you'll be able to get into the running for that. So that would be, if you can please fill out the form. And then lastly, I know I had a couple of questions about career assessments. We don't like to prescribe career assessments right away. There are some free ones on our website if you go to our resources, but we tend to recommend students to make an appointment to see which assessment we can recommend for you to take. So feel free to make an appointment with either me or myself or any of the career counselors on campus. Or also, if you want to take a quick free one, go on our website. You're going to see some free resources that you can check out there.
But I would, a thing about assessments, I always say they're not like all-knowing wizards that are going to tell you what you're going to become, but they're rather conversation starters. So even if you take an assessment online, there's career coach you'll see when you go onto our website. Make sure that you come back and meet with someone to talk about the results. And definitely you can start off with us and we can kind of look at some of the assessments out there and see which ones might be a good fit for you.
Thank you, everyone. I know we're over 2 minutes. Thank you for sticking with us, and we hope to see you soon.
Thank you.